Dear students, I hope you and your family are safe and healthy in this current scenario. जैसा कि आप सभी जानते हैं, जैसे समय निरंतर गति से चलता रहता है, हमें भी अपने कर्मों को हमेशा करते रहना चाहिए, चाहे परिस्थिति कैसी भी विकट क्यों ना हो। ये ऑनलाइन कोर्स के माध्यम से हम अपने सब्जेक्ट, अपने विषय को इस परिस्थिति में भी लर्न करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि मेरे कपल ऑफ वीडियोस regarding this subject engineering design 2 will help you to understand the concept behind this subject. So let us start our first lecture, and the topic is Introduction to the Sensors. So what is sensor? So this is a very common terminology that we are using in current scenario. We have several definitions regarding the sensor. One of the definition is the device that receives the stimulus and respond with an electrical signals. And we can also say it's a special type of transducer, or you can say the device that converts one type of energy into the another type of the energy. As you can see, we have several physical quantities are there, like protein, bacteria, sound, motions, and chemicals compounds. These all physical quantity can capable of generate energy, and this transducer is a device which convert such kind of energy into the different type of electrical energy in the form of electrical signals and optical signals. So what is common sensor available in the market? Mechanical sensors, optical sensor, and semiconductor sensor. So I hope in your previous semester in your mangonal project you have worked with the accelerometer and gyroscope sensors. So in this current semester you are going to work with the optical sensor, that is your photodetectors, which detects the light, and infrared sensor, that is a emit and detecting the infrared radiations. Semiconductor sensor, these are not the scope of our course, so we are not going to discuss this part in this lecture. So what are the different sensor technologies that you are going to use in a buggy? The first one is your infrared, that is called IR sensor, ultrasonic sensor, pulse receiver, Zigbee module for inter-buggy and command center communication. What is IR sensor? See, the IR sensor basically works with the intensity of the light. So you can see we have in two different diagrams. We have two different surfaces, white surface and a black surface. And there are two different LEDs. One is called IR transmitter, which transmits the lights, and second is an IR receiver that receives the lights. Once a light transmits from this LED IR transmitter, and if you have a white surface, it's going to reflect it back, and which will receive by the IR receiver. Similar case, if your IR transmitter transmits the light and it is absorbed by the black surface, and few of the lights is going to be absorbed by the IR receiver. जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि हमारा जो कलर कोड होता है वो 0 से 255 के बीच में होता है. दैट मीन्स 0 to 255 यानी वाइट से ब्लैक सरफेस के बीच में ही सारे कलर कोड्स होते हैं. दैट इज द ओनली रीजन our buggy going to run on the track which is made of white and black surface, right? So what is the concept behind this IR sensor? As you can see in this diagram, we have two different LED. There is one is emitter IR and second is a reflector IR. Emitter IR generates the IR radiations, and it is collides with the objects, any obstacle, and reflected back, and which is received by the reflector IR. So two different LED as we discussed, IR LED, which is also called as the transmitter, and we have second, that is photodiode, which is called as a reflector. So how is the working principle of IR LED? IR LED basically works similar to the normal LED. There is no difference between the IR LED and the normal LED. जैसे आपकी normal LED होती है वैसे ही काम करती है आपकी IR LED. IR LED always transmits the infrared lights. ठीक है, it cannot be visible by the naked eye, and this IR light is detected by the photodiode, that is the another LED. ठीक है. So how the photodiode works? The photodiode is basically generates the voltage depending upon the intensity of the light. Okay? So we have two different IR sensors, digital and analog. When we talk about the digital IR sensor, in digital sensor output is like high and low because it is digital, so high and low will be the output. When we talk about the analog IR sensor, in analog sensor detection depends upon the intensity of the light, like 0 to 255. Correct? You can see you are familiar with this IR sensor module. As you can see in this diagram, we have two different LED. First, the black LED, which is called as IR receiver, the white LED, which is called as IR emitter LED. Here is the distance adjuster. It is also called as a potentiometer. Right? This is a power LED, and these are three different pins in your IR sensor. And this pin can be identified as VCC output pin and ground pin, and this is your obstacle LED. So once you are going to connect this IR sensor to the buggy analog input ports, as we have already discussed in the previous lectures that we have four analog input ports in your buggy, that is A0, A1, A2 and A3, right? So, and you can see at the very left, at very top, we have a 5 volt voltage supply, and the last LED pin is having ground, and the center one is your output port. So we have to connect this IR sensor pin to the buggy analog input pins, either in any of the two combination, because we have a two different motors, two tires, so we have required two different IR sensors to connect to the buggy. So you can see when you are going to connect your IR sensor to the analog input ports, you must very much sure about that VCC pin of your IR sensor should be connected to the VCC port of the analog input ports. Similarly, the ground is going to be connected to the ground port, and output is going to be connected with the output port of your analog inputs. One thing is very important to note that in some module the output is the middle pin, while in other it's sideline pins. So it is a very essential to you guys to understand the pin configuration of your IR sensors and the analog input pins, right? So these are all physical combination how you are going to connect your IR sensor to the buggy. Once you connect your IR sensor to the buggy, as I told you, we have two IR sensors that is going to be connected to your buggy. So how you are going to work in program level, that we are going to discuss here. So in Arduino programming for your IR sensor, as we can see, we have four different variables here. These are R1, R2, R3 and R4. We have required only two global variables, that is R1 and R2, because we have two IR sensors which is going to be connected to the two different port of your buggy, right? So we have two different variables R1 and R2, And this R1 and R2, which is going to be read the value from the input port of your buggy, which receive the IR sensor value through the intensity of the light. So we have to define, as you can see in this particular code, in the void setup function, we have a serial.begin 9600, that is your serial communication stabilized, and we have a pin mode function. So first of all, we have to initialize the the analog input port of your buggy, that is A1 and A3. Since it received the IR sensor as an input, so we have to second parameter of pin mode will be the input port in both the cases. Once you initialize this pin mode function in your set of functions, it will receive some value. Both the value A1 and A3 will receive some value, and this value is going to be read by the function which is going to be defined in your void loop. So as you can see, we have a R1, and R1 equals to, you can see analog read. This analog read function read the value A1 from your analog input port of your buggy, and it is going to be stored in this local global variable R1. Similarly, the value which is received by the analog input of A3, it is going to be received to the R2 variable. Similarly, if we have digital value, we can define another variable, that is an integer R3 and integer R4. So in this digital read value, again A1 and A3, this produce two different value as a digital form, and it is going to be stored in these two variables R3 and R4. So one thing which is very important to understand, at single point of time, either you can use the analog read values for the computations, or just for you can use the digital value for the computations. Now in this case, this particular code, you can see we have received four different value in four different variables, R1, R2, R3 and R4, right? So in these four variables, we are going to store the value, and if you want to see the output in your serial monitor, you can just write a simple serial.println R1. Then you can see the value of R1, which is the analog value. Similarly, you can write serial.print tab, which will tab your values, and the second serial.println for R2, and serial.println for R3, and serial.println R4. So once you execute this particular code in your Arduino programming, you can see the output of this particular code in your serial monitor, and you can see the output of serial monitor will be just like a R1 having some analog value, R2 will be some analog value. Similarly, R3 and R4 is having some digital value like 0 or 1. And this value you can see in your serial monitor output. Once you got the value of R1 and R2, suppose in this case you got the value in digital form, R1 equals to low, that is 0, R2 equals to 0. So R1 equals to 0 and R2 equals to 0, that means you have a black surface. Similarly, if you R1 equals to high and R2 equals to low, that means one surface is white and one surface is black. So in first case, when R1 and R2 both are low, that means your both IR sensor lies on the black surface. So what exactly you want to know? You want to do, your buggy should move when your both IR sensor in black, in the forward direction. So you have to write this forward direction code once both IR sensor is low, that is on black surface. Now if you have a buggy, if you have R1 and R2 having some different value like high and low, or vice versa, that is low or high. In this case, your buggy should move in the right and left direction, right? So you have to write the code according to your requirement for the right and left movement of your buggy. Similarly, if you have the value of R1 and R2 like low and high, which is again you can use as a left or right, it depends upon your requirement. Now again, if you see the R1 and R2 is high, both the value of R1 and R2 is high, that means your IR sensor are on the white surface. Then what exactly you want to do? You have to move your buggy in the forward directions again. So you have to again write the forward direction code in this part, right? So this is the way you are going to move your buggy through the IR sensor in your buggy track. In the next lecture, we will discuss about the ultrasonic sensor, right, for the obstacle detections. And apart from that, we have some additional concept behind the IR sensor of parking code that we will discuss in the next lecture. Hope this lecture will be understood by you guys. This will help to understand the concept of IR sensor, right? Thank you very much.